Landscape ecology is the study of the causes behind the formation of patches and boundaries and the ecological consequences of these spatial patterns on the landscape. Landscape consists of mosaic of patches related to and interacting with each other. Several environmental factors interact to create a landscape pattern such as geology, topography, soils, climate, biotic processes, and disturbance.
Landscape connectivity. It is the degree to which the landscape facilitates or impedes the movement of organisms among patches. There are two components to landscape connectivity, which are the structural and functional connectivity. Structural connectivity relates to the physical arrangement of habitat, while the functional connectivity describes the degree to which the landscape facilitates the movement of organisms.
Patch size has a crucial influence on community structure, species diversity, and the presence and absence of species. There is a positive relationship exists between area and species diversity. Larger areas typically encompasses a greater number of microhabitats and thus will support a greater array of animal species. Another feature of patch size relates to differences between habitats provided by border and interior environments.
Similarity between islands and isolated patches of habitat has led ecologists to apply the theory of island biogeography. It was first developed by Robert MacArthur and Howard O. Wilson. The theory is quite simple. The number of species established on an island represents a dynamic equilibrium between the immigration of new colonizing species and the extinction of previously established ones.
Great Migrations captures the incredible stories of animals from across the globe and the journeys they take in the name of survival. The story of an elephant calf unable to survive the scorching heat. In a surprisingly human act, the herd mourns. A male zebra risks losing his own life while patiently encouraging a foal to leave his dead mother. Flying foxes by the hundreds of thousands break the calm dusk sky on the move for food. The heartbreaking journey of the Pacific walrus, struggling to survive in a world with less ice, they have fewer and fewer places to go. Feared extinct in war-torn Sudan, white-eared kob are filmed for the first time in decades and have flourished beyond our wildest hopes. A mother wildebeest watches helplessly as her calf struggles to free itself from the jaws of a hungry croc.
To the disaster in the Philippines, where officials fear the death toll could hit 10,000 after one of the strongest storms ever cut a devastating path of destruction across the country. We're now getting a clearer picture this morning of the extent of the massive damage caused by the super typhoon. ABC's Ginger Z is here with the latest. And Ginger, unfortunately, these numbers are expected to climb.
Yeah, it's stunning, too. I mean, the actual storm is now well west of the Philippines, but now we get into the second storm, the part where relief can't get to the people that need it. They don't have have water. They're searching for food, communication, transportation, and power all shut down. Beaten and trampled. This morning, we get a closer look at the fresh wounds behind that historic storm in the Philippines. And a terrifying reality of what it looked like at the moment of impact. The early numbers are staggering. The Associated Press is reporting nearly 10,000 people are feared dead. Amidst the ongoing drama of rescues, the Philippine government says at least 150 are confirmed dead and more than 9.5 million people were affected by Super Typhoon Haiyan. It will go down as one of the strongest storms to ever make landfall. I spoke to my husband earlier that day. I had faith that he would make it, but maybe he lost his will to live. He was telling me there was water everywhere and that there was no time anymore. So many still flooded, without power, water, and communication. Roads choked with debris. Relief could take days. What will I do now? My house is destroyed. I didn't anticipate the winds to be that strong. Oh my God. With winds up to 170 miles per hour, Haiyan brought storm surge as high as trees, leveling towns and villages. We just made mass graves for 57 people who died. The number is still going to increase because we have not been able to talk to the other towns because there's no means of transportation.
Oh man, it's too hot. I can't tolerate the heat anymore because of the sun.
No, I'm sweating. Look at how dry the soil is.
Look, wildfire! Blimey, run! That was too close, man.
I know.
Did you see that? There was a wildfire.
Yeah, mate. It's because of the hot temperature and the dry soil.
Good evening. This is our Western edition, and news is breaking in the West tonight. A drought, a heat wave, and strong winds are the elements for the disaster unfolding in Southern California. Wildfires are burning out of control in San Diego County. This is Carlsbad. The city sent notices today to 11,000 homes and businesses ordering people to get out. The Carlsbad fire is one of 4 in the county. Another is threatening homes at Camp Pendleton. CBS News correspondent Carter Evans is on the fire line in Carlsbad. Carter?
About 15 homes have been damaged in this fire so far. Some are a total loss. Right now, firefighters are trying to save this apartment complex behind me and keep the flames from spreading. The fire began mid-morning in the brush outside Carlsbad, but by noon it had moved into the upper middle-class neighborhoods of this coastal town. The only thing in its way were firefighters moving from house to house. Wind gusts of up to 50 miles per hour blew the flames across streets. This was Greg Saska's home for nearly 50 years.
We've never had a problem with this before. Usually the fire department comes and takes care of it, but this time they were not as quick and efficient as they could be.
Residents were ordered to leave immediately. Many only had time to grab what they could carry.
We got to get them out of here right now. There's fire over here, there's fire over here, there's fire everywhere. We're surrounded right now.
To give you an idea of how fast this fire is moving, this wall of flames raced up the hillside here in just the last few minutes. That's jeopardizing this elementary school right over here. Firefighters haven't even arrived. Crews were called in from across the region, and they are tired. Battalion Chief Nick Schuler said the wind kept them busy.
We had a large number of embers that were being tossed in the air, probably a half mile ahead of itself.
This is the second day in a row with temperatures near 100 degrees and low humidity. A fire yesterday in Rancho Bernardo forced thousands from their homes. Much of Southern California is covered by a blanket of tinder-dry vegetation after 27 months of severe drought. Cal Fire Chief Ray Cheney says last year's fire season never ended.
We never closed fire stations. We never closed air attack bases because the fuel conditions and the vegetation conditions and the weather conditions were such that we had fire conditions year-round.
California has seen more than 1,300 fires since January. That's twice as much as usual, and the driest months are still ahead. This is just one of a handful of fires burning throughout Southern California right now. There are 150 firefighters on this particular fire, and it did so much damage because it's in a densely populated area. The good news is the wind is starting to calm down and the temperature is cooling off, but that red flag warning continues through tomorrow.
Carter Evans, thanks.
Timber harvesting or logging is another example of human disturbance to the forest. The disturbance to the forest depends on what kind of logging method employed. The first method is the selection cutting that only removes mature single trees or groups. This logging method only produces gaps on the forest canopy. Although this is a minimal disturbance, it has its impact on the species composition because it favors the shade tolerant compared to the shade intolerant. The other method is the clear cutting that involves the wide removal of wide block of trees. This favors the shade intolerant species. If people doesn't control the amount of timber that are harvested, the impact to the forest ecosystem and to us will be devastating.
Illegal logging refers to situations where timber is produced in contravention of national and international laws on cutting, processing, transporting or exporting wood. Illegal logging has a devastating effect on some of the world's most valuable remaining forests and the people that live in them. It causes carbon emissions, destroys valuable animal habitats, and at its worst, has kept some poor countries locked in cycles of corruption and poverty. Illegal logging and related trade can involve various activities such as illegal tree felling, theft of wood, smuggling of forest products, tax fraud, as well as violating rights of forest.
I feel that our environment is too dry, and as you can see, there are cracks in sand, and there is no water from where I am standing right now. I also feel thirsty, by the way. Guys, this phenomenon is known as drought, or the dry season in Earth. Generally, this occurs when a region receives consistently below average precipitation, and it may lead to adverse effects to the agriculture and ecosystem.
A drastic change just this week from extreme to even worse, if that's possible, as California suffers through an unprecedented drought that we've been covering over half the state, now facing the most severe conditions. One of the hardest hit areas is Lake Piru in California. NBC's Joe Fryer is there for us tonight. Joe, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. Hard to believe this is Lake Piru. We're actually standing at the boat launch. Clearly no boats going in the water. In fact, you can't even see water from where we're standing. Lake levels here are at 25% of what's considered normal, all thanks to a drought that's causing some to take drastic measures. On a parched citrus farm in Central California, it has come to this. A bulldozer is ripping out a third of Sean Stevenson's orange trees. There's just not enough water to keep everything alive.
When these trees are gone, they're not going to use any more water, so I can put that water on another crop.
Already, he has laid off some of his staff, a fourth-generation farm facing a once-in-a-lifetime dry spell.
If we have another year as dry as this last one, we'll probably be just about entirely out of business.
Take a look at California's drought map. This is what it looked like last week, and here it is this week. Exceptional drought in dark red now covers 58% of the state, up from 36% just 7 days ago.
It doesn't impact just the state of California. It impacts everyone in the nation and internationally.
What didn't help, Tuesday's water main break, which flooded UCLA with 20 million gallons of water. Starting this week, California is issuing $500 fines to water wasters like those dousing driveways and sidewalks. Brown lawns are now a surprisingly common sight in the wealthy celebrity enclave of Montecito, which has been rationing water since February.
If it doesn't rain next year, everyone will be rationing in the state.
A new study says this year's drought will cost California $2.2 billion, a huge blow to the nation's top agriculture state and to farmers like Sean Stevenson.
The cold places before, but not this cold. It's definitely freezing right now. I remember a couple of years ago it wasn't as cold as it is, but it may have been because of our actions that the climate here is fluctuating. Because of this, some animals and maybe even plants don't exist here anymore. It's nature's way of telling us that things aren't normal anymore. So here are my friends from ABC to tell us on how the winter is in their place.
100 million Americans have been hit by a winter storm, packing pretty much everything in the weather arsenal. This map shows the ferocious speed and power of the northeaster. In 48 hours, barreling from Texas across the south up the coast to Maine. People forced to abandon cars after highways turned into skating rinks. And that was if you could dig your car out. These with only the mirrors poking through. And right now, a prediction of thunder, snow, and sleet. And our extreme weather team is tracking it all. ABC's Lindsay Janis starts us off in the northeast, where the storm is still on the move tonight.
With snow and ice and wind and rain, the storm that crippled the South, killing at least 20 people, is still wreaking havoc. Whiteout conditions from the nation's capital to the treacherous New York State Thruway. Nor'easter winds whipping a house fire in New York City, at least 7 injured. Also in New York, a pregnant woman was struck and killed by a plow, her baby saved. Pennsylvania still under a state of emergency from the last storm. Just outside Philly, we helped 64-year-old Rosemary Augustine dig out. She lost power for nearly 3 days last week and again last night.
Well, I got a fur coat on, so.
Have you been wearing it inside?
And I've been wearing it inside.
Her 100-year-old mother had to go to the hospital to stay warm. Others in her building, like this toddler with breathing problems, evacuating. Rosemary showed us how she's managing with a gas stove.
I boil water in a big pan.
Hundreds of schools closed, but in the nation's largest district, New York, they stayed open. Meteorologists arguing their forecast was accurate and that schools should have closed.
Now that you have learned the concepts of land dynamics, and to end this video, here's an overview.